All right. Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, Veronica?
Hi, thanks for the introduction. I guess the question is, do you have any like requirements or ideas for how each node should coordinate, or is that really up to us how we
Yeah, so
coordinate
that's
and get work done?
exactly, that would be the next step. And that was a little difficult in the other nodes, but we got there in the end. So most of the other nodes have their elected leaders already. So the idea is that I'll send around an email so that everyone has the whole email list of the whole group. And then we really want people to just, we don't want to interfere in that project. So ideally, someone would volunteer to be the node leader, and then I don't know, the group would agree on that or disagree. And from there on, each node should work independently. We just need to know who the group leader is so that we can have a point of contact if we need to contact people. Any other questions? How do people feel about this? Is this something that you think, yeah, will be interesting to do? Are you interested in participating? Do you have any suggestions?
So Lynn, I might miss some information. So who funded this project? I mean, like this product will be like the report or the consensus or the outcome of this project will be provided to an agency or
We will publish it as a policy brief.
okay. Oh.
Greg Rowe has a question.
Yeah, well, we're not the only ones concerned about MRV. There's a bunch of other groups and people that are working on this. So I guess I'm a little curious how this is unique to other efforts. And by the way, we just published best practices for OAE. So I mean, that's one star. Obviously, it doesn't cover all of mCDR, but just wondered how this is going to get coordinated with other efforts and what's unique about this versus those other efforts.
So what we think is unique here is that we really made a massive effort to include the Global South. So it was really difficult to find a lot of people in Africa and in South America, especially. Asia was relatively easy, but we really try to get global equal representation. So we feel that many of the science definitely at the moment is totally driven by North America and Europe. And these efforts and if we make it into a really global policy in the end, and if we will have mCDR methods that have a global impact, we need global consensus in this, and we need to hear from each continent, and everyone needs to have a say on this. So we're really interested in if the Global South has a similar opinion on those things, or if they see things very, very differently. And I think that's the uniqueness of this project, that we try to give equal representation to each continent.
And so, do you even need North American input?
Of course. No, of course we do. I mean, you're right. There will be we know there are things that you guys are working on and that have been published recently. But I think it would be really good if we get our questions answered by the North American node as well, so that we can directly compare it to the others. It will be really interesting. We're just as curious, ourselves to really see how how the scientific community feels about this, what we agree on and where we don't agree on. Because I mean, Leonard and I were both from Germany, so we come from this European field and we have our European networks, but especially moving to New Zealand really made me think about things quite differently, because how indigenous science is treated here in New Zealand is quite unique, I find. So there are a lot of things where I'm still learning, and where I absolutely wasn't aware of how different people can approach things, and how they can have a completely different view on science and the world and the environment. So we feel it's really important to give equal representation as much as possible to these efforts.
I would just say that, first of all, thank you for doing this. And I really appreciate how focused and guided your efforts are. So I was part of the team that was helping to launch the OCB nodes, which are all US based, just as a result of the funding situation. But we like opted to go very open-ended. And I think, there's something to be said for like just getting people in a room, self-defining their questions, whatever. But this is so complementary in the sense that you are going in with a very targeted set of questions, a limited timeline, and a deliverable in the sense of that 3-page paper. And I think that that is very like useful and complementary. And I like the way those aren't competing at all. So like the open-ended US nodes can tackle whatever question the leaders and the people that they attract want to do, and it can be very locally driven. But this has a nice complementary piece of being very targeted, and so I'm curious, like was that? But I mean, I'm curious about the team that put together the questions and like how you arrived at that particular set of questions, and what information you're taking to inform those so far. Thanks.
That was Leonard and I in our discussions. I mean, Leonard is very well connected with with especially North America and Europe. So we sat together and we had this. I mean, Leonard had the general idea, and then we just talked through and came up with those questions in discussions. And I think it's always we always came back to those kind of questions where we feel that this is where we need the most, or where we still have the most uncertainty. Yeah, so it was just us coming up with those questions, and
Yes, thanks.
I have another question.
Yes.
It seems like gathering these groups for the nodes in different parts of the world in itself is a large effort that you and Leonard have already coordinated. Are there ways in which, beyond the existing project to kind of build some of those connections? Because I know how siloed we can be.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. If that's something that comes out of this, that would be fantastic. So we're hoping that under the SOLAS umbrella, maybe afterwards we can, I mean, definitely we can share those connections with everyone. I think that would be a great outcome in itself. And then maybe as a global group after this project, we can move on and tackle the next questions. I don't know. So if anything comes out of this, if it's just making or widening our global network, that would be fantastic, I think. And it was quite difficult. I mean, Africa, for example, is gigantic, and within Africa, people don't really work together very well either. Same with Asia, and often it's a few countries that dominate at least the kind of outreach of science in one continent. So we really tried to reach people in underrepresented countries. Of course, it's it was, yeah, probably just the beginning. And of course, we didn't really reach equal representation. We don't have every country represented, of course, but we really made an effort. And I think it's a start. And if we can take this as a starting point and move on to, from there as a global group, that would be amazing.
That's great. Thanks.
Lynn, can I ask
Sure.
what you see as the next steps? Is everything going to take place from here forward within the nodes? This is purely
Yes.
there's like an organizational meeting. Okay.
Yes.
And those nodes have all been established?
So the we have the South American and the African node. I have to check in with the Asian node. So South America and Africa, they have elected their leaders and they have started to work, or told me that they have started to work on this just before Easter. I have to check in with the Asian node how they are doing. And who else did we have? We have so North America, Africa, South America, Oceania. So that's one node that where we are not quite happy with the representation yet because it was very heavily dominated by Australia and New Zealand. So we are still working on getting more representation from the Pacific Islands. Yeah, so far it's only Africa and South America that are really ready to go. But in the other nodes, we're getting there. And then Europe, of course. But the idea is that from here on, those nodes work independently, yes. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah.
Richard, you had a question?
Lynn, do you see Richard's question in the chat?
Yeah, so I just saw that. Yeah, as I said, so South America and Africa, they have elected their leaders, and potentially Asia, but I have to check in with them.
Just a question.
Yes.
We're learning that mCDR is not applicable everywhere all the time. In other words, even though you have access to an ocean, it may not be ideal for doing mCDR. So there's an inequity right there that not everybody's going to be able to participate. Certainly landlocked countries will be less likely to participate. So is that part of the calculus here, is that not everyone will be able to participate because of the nature of the oceanography where they are. Isn't that a factor here?
Sure, it's a factor. I mean, we mainly reached out to marine scientists because, I mean, that's one of the other things that I work in a botany department, so my colleagues are terrestrial, mainly terrestrial ecologists, and most of them have never heard of mCDR before I mentioned it to them. So I feel that we as marine scientists feel this is a global topic that is a really hot topic at the moment and everyone knows about it, but it's actually not as well known in the non-marine science community and definitely not in the non-scientific community. So we, for this project, reached out to marine scientists so they have at least heard of it. But you're absolutely right. Not every country will participate or has an interest in this. But if we do this on a global scale, it will impact everyone. So everyone should be aware of it and should have a say in it. So we see this as a kickstart also, hopefully to, hopefully to kind of increase our awareness of it and to increase or to get the word out to not only marine scientists, but to more other people as well. Okay, if there are no more questions, then I'll stop here. I'll send the recording around to the rest of the group, and I'll send out the questions again in a separate file, and the I'll send an email around to everyone so that you have all the email addresses, and then hopefully I'll check in with you again in probably a week or so. So hopefully by then someone has volunteered to be the leader, and we definitely from the people who showed up here, this is probably going to be the biggest node, which is what we expected because North America is so well connected in this area already. But it's really exciting, I think. And so far, Leonard and I are really happy with the feedback that we've gotten so far and with the enthusiasm of the different nodes. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. All right, if there are no more questions, then bye everyone. Thanks a lot for attending.
Bye. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.